𝗕𝗪 has pulled back by over 49% in the last 9 days. In this video, we're going to dive into the technical analysis on 𝗕𝗪 to see whether this bleeding is going to continue or whether we're going to see a nice recovery back to the upside. Guys, as we get into this, if you do find it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not subscribe, tap the bell and select all notifications. In doing so, you will not miss another 𝗕𝗪 update. Right, with that said, done out of the way, let's dive down into this technical analysis on 𝗕𝗪. We're going to kick things off, guys, with our weekly chart, really talking about the structure of these 5 impulse waves to the upside. This really started back in March of 2020, where we peaked out with wave 1 around August time. This then set us in motion for our first correction wave. And this corrective wave actually took us down to low areas, where we kind of bottomed out towards the end of the year, around December time. This then obviously started the new year in a really strong wave for 𝗕𝗪, where we peaked up with all-time highs in 22nd of March 2021, right? So ultimately from our low areas of March 2020 through to March 2021, we have seen 18,905% in gains over 385 days. So again, no bank is going to offer you those kind of returns. This is significantly higher than many other projects in the space. We take a look at Bitcoin for the same time period, this is only 1,600%. We take a look at Ethereum, and for that time period, it's 5,100%. Okay, we take a look at VeChain, which was very close at 18,295%. So overall, 𝗕𝗪 has performed incredibly well. It's one of the stronger performers in our portfolio, and does continue to do well. We can obviously see that we did actually set a new all-time high recently before having this pullback, where the stock market and of course the crypto market was shaken by what is going on over in China. Here we can see that we are looking for a good recovery to the upside. We can take a look at a few extra things here on this weekly chart before we dive down to the next level. The first thing we want to acknowledge is there is a nice push to the upside, where we do expect the 𝗕𝗪 project to peak out at around 79 cents. This would be about a 476% move from the current position. Of course, we could see an overextension of that, where we go and aim for that $1 level. We take a look at the stochastic. We were oversold at the bottom of wave 1. We were oversold at the bottom of wave 2. We were oversold at the bottom of wave 4. We were overbought as we entered this area here for wave 1, at the peak of wave 3. And of course, we're heading up into this overbought area for where we want to go with wave 5, although we have had a bit of a pullback in a very similar way that we saw with wave 3. So ultimately, the structure is still very much intact. Unless we drop down lower than wave 4, this is actually looking like a pretty interesting dip to potentially be buying up. I do anticipate, though, that once the month of September is out of the way, we are looking for a nice surge to the upside, with Bitcoin also forecasting around $60,000 during the month of October. So overall, everything is looking pretty good and pretty healthy on this chart. But obviously, there is some portfolios that are being damaged by the recent pullback, but this could be an opportunity to build up a better position ahead of where we expect to go in the next month or two. Overall, the weekly chart is looking pretty good, so I'm going to jump down into our daily chart. The daily chart, guys, lets us take a look at the granular level, each candle representing 1 day. At this particular level, we're able to also get the Fibonacci retracement tool, so you can see exactly what's going on there. So taking the current performance into consideration of the top of wave 3, the bottom of wave 4, using the Fibonacci retracement tool from that high and that low allows us to put on some projections. We can see the 1.618, the 2.618, the 3.618, and the full 4.236 extensions. This comes in at 33.3 cents, 51 cents, 68.8, and then 79.7 at the top of that full extension of the 4.236. This is how we assume that our fifth wave is likely to push up to that 4.236 79-cent area based on the performance of wave 3 and wave 4. So taking those into consideration, this seems like a pretty pretty reasonable area for 𝗕𝗪 to actually push up to. Of course, it would be a very small extension from there to take us to $1, and it is a nice psychological barrier, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we do actually peak up above this area and get pulled back down from there. So overall, everything's looking pretty tidy here from that kind of perspective. We can take a look at the recent all-time high that was set and then the pullback that we had when it came to Bitcoin. Now, this is really unfortunate because we were tracking a good push to the upside. Bitcoin was messing around with some of these metrics with 𝗕𝗪, which was really unfortunate because we were looking at tracking pretty nicely to the upside, where we were going to set some pretty good all-time highs. Instead, we barely got an all-time high before Bitcoin pulled us down. This is rather unfortunate unfortunate, obviously on the 13th of September when that occurred. We have obviously slipped down quite significantly. We are, of course, looking for that push. As I said, we've dropped 49% in 9 days. So we are, of course, looking for that recovery. We can take a look at the stochastic RSI on this daily chart and see that we are incredibly oversold at 4.3. Okay, so again, we take a look at where we were during these low areas down here. We were at very similar levels, right? We were tracking around 4.1, for example. So we know that we're in very good areas to see a pretty good push to the upside overall. So right now, we are just waiting for the hourly chart to really align up nicely with what we're expecting to happen in the next month or so. So I am still expecting some volatility on the smaller time frames, but overall, Harmony 1 is looking pretty nice for a good push to the upside overall. So again, I'm not feeling bearish on this one right now. There is this area here, this yellow box area is an interesting zone to potentially be buying up the dip. This is an area that we were really struggling to push through previously and have turned into a nice strong support area so far. So dropping below our downward trend line here very briefly and then pushing on up, this was an opportunity to buy up some cheap Harmony 1 in my opinion. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the 𝗕𝗢 dashboard. This is using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us understand the underlying value of cryptocurrencies. There is a link in the description below, guys, if you're unfamiliar. So do sign up with advice.io and you'll be able to get access to all of the information readily available for Harmony 1. Here, you'll be able to find out the liquidity, if there are any liquidity problems, the fear and greed index, the Sharpe ratio, the profitability, just to name a few. And in this case, we're going to actually talk through these on this video. So Harmony 1 is an overall rating of B1, which is actually not too bad when we consider how fearful the space is at the moment. And we can actually go down deeper, right? The 𝗕𝗢𝗪 ratio is indicating an A2 rating. So is there any problems with liquidity for Harmony 1? Not at the moment. This is actually looking pretty good from a liquidity point of view. The fear and greed index is at a B3. So this is a lower area of neutral. So if we drop down into the C ratings, that would be fearful. B ratings are pretty neutral and A ratings are greedy. So this actually puts us in a pretty reasonable area, as in Harmony 1 is not as fearful as something like VeChain or something like Bitcoin or Ethereum right now. So ultimately actually pretty good sentiment in the space, neither greedy nor fearful, which is nice to see. We actually jump down to the Sharpe ratio, and this is an A2 rating. So the Sharpe ratio is your risk to reward, the risks of holding Harmony 1 versus the rewards of holding Harmony 1. We can see that we're above the 50-day average and we're tracking quite nicely here. Although the gap is closing, we have got an A2 rating overall. So the risk-reward ratio is slightly in our favor here and no problems are being indicated. The profitability is an A1, and as I said at the beginning of the video, 18,905% in gains in just 1 year. This is significant return on investment, much more than you're getting with things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, for example. So overall, the profitability has to be an A1. It's absolutely outstanding. We can obviously jump down to see the peak end value demand is at B2. The moving averages have been affected with the recent pullback at C2. Overall, you get that B1 rating, and I think ultimately we're in a pretty good position with Harmony 1 from the underlying data. The AI and machine learning hasn't really picked up anything majorly wrong that we cannot see inside the charts, i.e. the moving averages have been affected by the recent trading activity. But overall, liquidity is fine, fear and greed index is fine, the Sharpe ratio is actually pretty good in our favor, the profitability is good. I'm not really concerned over any other short-term things that are going on right now. So with that being said, let's jump down into our hourly view. This hourly view allows us to take a look at each hourly candle to see what's been going on most recently. Here we can see there was a downward trend that we were tracking, but we actually found stability on this trend line, or support line, I should say. This comes in at 11.9 cent. Here we can see that we're wicking down to it, really finding it as a strong support line, and we started to move back to the upside. The problem that we have here, though, guys, is the fact that we have not moved the needle significantly enough to say that we are going to protect the price before we have another pullback. We can take a look at the stochastic. We have moved from an oversold to an overbought area without actually, moving the needle all too much, as in we're actually lower than the previous high, right? So there's a downward trend here. So we have to be mindful that we are looking for a pullback on our stochastic, and we haven't exactly been able to protect the price so far. So we'll be looking to try to hold this area of support at 11.9, but there is no guarantee of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw the volumes on here, and we can see that actually during this recent motion, we've been have been pushing the price up along with the volume pushing up as well. So we want to basically now see the volume drop whilst we correct the price to the downside. This will help protect the price whilst we find stability around this 11.9 cent area. So my hope is that we actually do have this pullback and we find that this support area holds out nicely, 11.9 cent. If we don't hold that, then we'll be looking down at 11.4 and then 10.8 down here. I don't think we're expecting a huge pullback on these small time frames, so I'd like to think that 11.9 or 11.4 will hold nicely for us, and then we should start to see that reversal overall. Ultimately, the game here, guys, for Harmony 1 is to try to protect ourselves during the rest of the month of September. After all, this is the month of corrections historically, and every September we usually see such a dip. So right now this is not concerning, but we want to make sure that we don't do too much damage ahead of where we are going in October. Overall, the expectations for October will be to set new all-time highs as long as we protect the price in a nice area here on the charts. We have got a bit of an uphill battle to get back to these areas that we were tracking in before. So again, the 618-702-786 and then a close-up position up there before going to all-time highs. So overall, I am expecting volatility on the smaller time frame. Of course, the daily is looking very good. So if we are ever in doubt, then we want to be tracking what is going on with our daily chart. And of course, the weekly chart is also lining up very nicely for us, showing us some good motion and good structure to how we get to that 79 cent prediction at the end of the bull run. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there, but hopefully you have found this useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. With that said, done and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.